You. Yes, you. Come here. I got a little treat for you. Welcome to my channel or welcome back. I'm Maryam. In today's video, I am going to show you how to create this very fun, very naughty she-devil makeup look just in time for Halloween. So this is the look that I have prepared for you. Very glam, but subtle and still very sexy. However, if you are looking to amp it up and make it a little bit more realistic and scary, I am going to show you how to take this very sexy look and transform it to this.
Scary, fiery, ready to kill, ready to devour, ready to attack, ready to have fun, ready to go to a party, devilish look.
So I hope you like these two takes on the she-devil or devil makeup costume for Halloween. I hope you make it yours. Let me know which one of these two looks is your favorite down below. Before we get into this video, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can watch all of my Wednesdays and Sundays videos, not just this one. And also remember, I do have a Halloween playlist of other classic Halloween makeup looks, not just the devil, but also the witch, also the vampire, also Maleficent, some Disney princesses. I got you. Anyway, let's hit it. Devil makeup.
Two ways. Here we go.
Alright, so I already have my wig cap on, and I believe that it is best to start your Halloween makeup with your wig cap on because it kind of pulls your temples and your eyebrows back. It gives you a much tighter canvas, and for the she-devil look, I feel like that is important because a lot of the devilish expression is going to be in the eyes and in the eyebrows. So speaking of eyebrows, I'm actually going to start with the eyebrows before I do anything else. I'm going to use my Benefit 24-hour brow setter to laminate and set my brows in place. I'm gonna back comb them as I always do. I'm gonna work on one brow at a time too. And I'm just gonna lift all these hairs up so that they look straight and devilish. Okay, so basically it should look something like this. Obviously, this will also depend on the shape of your eyebrows, but for the most part, just try to brush the brow hairs up and kind of glue them up. I also think Halloween costume makeup looks are all about the extreme, so don't be afraid to be extreme. I have a feeling that this year, people are really gonna be going over the top with not just their looks, but their behaviors as well. I feel like we've all been locked up for too long. People are ready to come out of their shell. This one is looking great. This one is looking just a little bit more wolfy than devilish, so I'm gonna fix her up. All right, good enough for now. Very freaky. All right, next I'm gonna prime my canvas. I'm gonna be using this SMASHBOX Photo Finish Oil and Shine Control Primer. I don't really reach for this primer too often in my real life, but I think it's good for the purpose of a costume makeup look. Next thing I'm gonna do is something weird. I'm gonna go back to the brows. I'm gonna use this Makeup Forever Artist Color Pencil, basically in a black shade, and I'm going to fill in and outline the shape of my eyebrow. I'm not really filling it in too precisely. I'm just mapping out the eyebrow shape that I want for this devilish look. I'm thinking that longer, curvier, more exaggerated is it. And I'm also thinking that they need to come together a little bit lower and a little bit closer together. That's what's gonna give them that very exaggerated sort of shape. Now again, remember, this is just a map out. This is not what these brows will look like at the end. So now I'm just gonna blend that out. I'm using this really small brush just to kind of fill in that shape over the laminated part. The brush that I'm using is actually Sigma's Precise Lip Line brush. It's very tiny, but it's very precise, so it really helps to get in between those eyebrows and just perfect that shape. So now you see I'm not actually adding any product to the brow. I'm just blending this pencil through these laminated brows. And I'm also using this really precise brush to perfect the shape, to make it sharp, precise, and extra evil. Devilish. Now this is just what I'm doing. You absolutely don't have to do these crazy brows. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You can obviously skip the brows altogether, but to me, I think it's such an important feature. It gives character to your character. And because the eyebrows are so expressive, we can easily express any emotion with the eyebrows. For my foundation today, I'm just gonna use my regular old Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation. I like this one a lot, and I'm using it today because it's actually a full coverage foundation, and I definitely want to have that perfected canvas. Now for the Sexy She Devil, you absolutely don't need to paint your whole face red unless you want to. This is a step that shouldn't be too different from your typical makeup application. Just perhaps maybe a little bit more full coverage, a little bit more glam. I'm also not changing the shade of my skin tone. I'm not making it any lighter. I'm not making it any redder. I'm not really doing anything different here. I'm just making it all matte, even, and one color. Okay, good enough. Next concealer, Tarte Shape Tape, the ultra creamy version. Just concealing everything and lifting that eye shape, getting rid of any shadows, brightening and lifting. All right, next. So baking is not something that I typically do on an everyday basis, but it is definitely something that I want to do for Halloween. So I'm going to use my one size translucent setting powder. I'm going to dip a sponge into it, and I'm going to set and bake my under eye. The reason why I like to bake specifically for costume makeup, such as Halloween makeup, is because typically this costume makeup is worn to a party. So you definitely want this makeup to last. And because this is significantly more makeup than one typically wears on a regular basis, it needs to have more staying power than something that is worn on everyday basis, which is why I am making sure to bake all of those areas that get super oily on me, such as the porous zone, such as my nostrils, the side of my nose, and of course the under eye to brighten it and to bring it all together. Also gonna bake in between my eyebrows and a bit on top, a little bit right here around the mouth. And then I'm gonna set that aside. What I'm actually going to do now is grab my contour stick. This one is my favorite contour stick for actually contouring. This is PIXI Multi-Balm in Sheer Sculpt, and it has a very believable neutral grayish undertone that truly resembles a shadow. I use this one probably every year for Halloween time. And what I'm gonna do here is carve out my forehead, just add a little bit more dimension there. I'm going to carve out my cheekbone, kind of like that. And you see how I'm sort of pointing it downward? This is the part that gives that kind of evil sculpt. I'm not adding too much product, just a little bit. I am gonna blend that out. And because contouring makes me look extra evil, I'm going for it. It's also making me look a little manly, not gonna lie, but that's totally fine. I'm gonna use this FENTY brush to blur and blend everything out before I move on to the next step. Do you see that? It's almost the same technique that I used in my Maleficent Halloween tutorial for the cheekbone, except it's not as precise. I'm actually going to blend it out. Okay, so now once I've done that, I'm gonna go back to my sponge, I'm gonna go back to my one size powder, and I'm actually going to chisel right underneath the part that I just contoured, like that. You see it? The next thing that I'm going to do is work on the eyes. With this look, you can go anywhere. You could use a black eyeshadow, a red eyeshadow, a glittery eyeshadow. You could even put rhinestones all over your lids, whatever you want. But for me, I'm gonna stick to the red and black theme of the She Devil. So I'm gonna use this Disney MULAN palette that has some reds and some shimmery black shades, also some neutral shades. I also may dip into the Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag Facelift palette and the Moonspell Volume 2, just in case. And also I'm gonna be reaching into this Hola Chola palette by Becky G. It has beautiful matte shades, so that can also help me out. Basically, just go with what you already have. I am going to go back to my PIXI contour stick. I'm gonna add a little bit of cream onto my nose bridge, not touching the powder. And this is, again, just for mapping out. I'm gonna trace a shape and then pull that out onto my temple. Kind of like that, doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm gonna take one of these toothbrush looking brushes. I believe this one is from Tarte. I'm just gonna blur that line and create that nice shadow like that. I know this looks like it's a little bit tedious and complicated, but you don't have to go as far as I'm going. You can basically just follow the guidelines and just add a powder contour instead of the cream, but for me, I just want to go for the most to show you the most so you can get maximum payoff, you know? Okay, real quick, I'm actually gonna whisk off some of this nose contour so that I can blend down and intensify that nose contour. Did I say nose contour before? I meant nose powder. So basically everything that I'm doing in this video is stuff that I don't do in real life because I find that it makes me look way too evil. But for the sake of Halloween, I'm going to work with my RBF features and I am going to make them work for me. I'm just making my nose a little bit thinner, a little bit more sinister and unrealistic. Also might want to add a little bit of a chin contour here. For some reason, when you add this part, it also gives the illusion of like a more evil chin. I don't know why, kind of like that. Okay, another thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to sort of lift this arched part of my eyebrow right above. And of course, I'm gonna blend it out. You're not really gonna see that anymore, but you are gonna feel that slight pull upwards. Do you feel it? I feel it. Fenty Beauty Primer, as always and per usual. Gonna add that to my lid. Notice how I added that after the contour, because the contour is very creamy and I don't want eyeshadow to stick onto it. I just want it to almost look like that's how my eye is naturally shaped. I'm gonna reach for this very grayish brown shade called True. Cap some off. This is a Mario E3 brush. And I'm gonna start adding that to that eye socket line, buffing that out and lifting that up. Consider the shape and keep thinking about that lift outwards and upwards. Next, I'm gonna go for a matte red shade. This one is called Chingona from the BECKY palette. And I'm actually gonna add that a bit higher than the previous shade, like that. So now I'm starting to add a little bit of color to the she-devil look. Starting to intensify that brow bone, like that. Fun and fierce and brilliant. All right, so I'm just gonna blend that out so that it's not super obvious. If you're wearing a wig, you're probably not even gonna see the temples and this whole area, but it's still important to make sure that everything is seamless and everything is pointing in the right direction. And in this case, the direction is up and out. Taking a pencil brush and a matte black shade, this one's called Little Smoky, adding that right to the outer part of that crease, intensifying, whisking out, and also starting to connect to the top lash line. All right, back to the first brush and just kind of blending the black with the red, blending out the lower part of that. Next, I am actually gonna reach for the Moonspell Volume 2 palette and I'm gonna dip into this red shade here. It's called Willow. I'm gonna grab a pretty dense big brush and start applying that to the lid. Now, because this is a matte shade, it plays very well with the other matte shades, which is why I told you don't have to be super precise, because essentially you're overlapping the previous shades and making everything look so much more seamless. I'm gonna grab a small pencil brush and just kind of blend the inner portion of that. Next, I'm gonna dip my finger into a shimmery red shade. This one is Undefeated from the MULAN palette, and I'm gonna layer that right on top. So now this is starting to come together. I'm gonna whisk away any of that fallout from before. And because we baked so hard, now it's really easy to whisk away any red or black eyeshadow. I'm gonna go back into this palette, reach for the shade Honor, and just chisel out the inner portion of this shape and add a bit more weight to this part underneath my brow. I'm gonna dip back into that burgundy shade and then run that straight through the black, just so that it's looking more red than black. And now back to the black just to darken everything. I'm gonna go back to the face and then back to the eyes. There's a reason to my madness, I promise you. I'm gonna use a big brush just to whisk away all the powder from the baking. And then I'm actually gonna reach for this KEVYN Sculpting Powder. This one is a very similar shade to the PIXI Sculpt Stick. And so what I'm gonna do with this guy is actually set my contour and intensify it, and also map out the shape for my blush, which is going to be very red. I'm gonna use this Dose of Colors angled contour brush, dip into this powder, and then just continue down that same path, sculpting out the cheekbone and then kind of dragging it down. Also gonna add some of that powder to the side of my forehead and just continuing that very sinister chisel. I'm gonna use a tiny brush for the nose, between the lip and the chin, to kind of surround the chin. Moving on to the blush, I picked up JACLYN Cosmetics Rouge Romance palette, which is the redder, more coral of the two palettes. I'm gonna grab this brighter shade called Ever After, and I'm gonna start painting that directly over the contour shape while also kind of pointing it down. So this is what's gonna take your makeup from looking like stage makeup to actual costume Halloween makeup. It's gonna give it that interest, it's gonna give it that dimension while still keeping it sexy and wearable. So usually when I tend to shy away from too much blush, in this case, I'm absolutely not shying away. In fact, I'm doing the most with my blush. Okay, next I'm gonna take a slightly lighter shade, perhaps this one, Boudoir. Actually, it's not really lighter, it's a little bit more saturated is what it is, which is fine. We'll saturate it, we'll continue, but then we're actually gonna need to blend that out. So I'm gonna take this lighter shade called Pretty Posh and then just blend it into the rest of my skin. Yes. Okay, are you ready for the super fun part? I'm gonna grab that same brush that I used for the nose contour, which is like a little bit more precise. It's actually an Eco Tools contour brush. I'm gonna dip into this shade here called Sad Girl. It's kind of like a grayish dark brown. And I'm gonna add that directly under my blush. I'm gonna keep it somewhat subtle at first, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm painting my cheekbone in that Maleficent style, and I'm adding more dimension and I'm lifting it higher and I'm blending it just so it can look a little bit more evil, a little bit more chiseled and snatched. Now I have a lot of baby hairs here, so I'm just gonna lift them up and concentrate. And then if you feel like it's not perfect, it's not as precise, you can always go back with your powder and just chisel it back out to your liking. You're also sort of cleaning it up and making sure that they're even. There's a lot of layering happening here. So now I'm also going to chisel out my nose a little bit. Good enough. All right, so for my highlighter, I'm gonna use something that's a little bit iridescent, a little bit rosy. I'm gonna go for this Huda Beauty Theia Nymph Kiss Glow Blush. And now this is not something that I like for every day, but I think for Halloween, it's quite perfect because it does have this very duochrome, rosy, golden sort of tone. So this is going to be perfect for right here. It's just gonna reflect everything and it's gonna add so much more dimension to this crazy ass cheekbone. I am just literally building the cheekbone here. Okay, we're gonna let that simmer. Going back to the eyes. Grab a Pat McGrath PermaGel liner in Extreme Black. Lining my waterline, of course. And also top lining or tight lining my top lash line. It is my least favorite thing to do in makeup, but it makes a difference and it's gotta be done for a Halloween makeup look. That is the she-devil. Whew, that is scary. I'm gonna take a tiny smudger brush and smudge out the line underneath. Also just sealing it in with some eyeshadow. Not really taking it down too far. Also, I do want to extend that inner corner. That's another sure way to add more evil to your look. So I'm doing that with an eyeshadow instead and a very precise brush. And this, I have to say, looks really good. I really like it. Okay, for the top lash line, I'm gonna use NARS Climax Liquid Eyeliner in Explicit Black. Actually, just gonna wing it first. Like that. I'm thinking this look needs another line just to make it more me. And by another line, I just mean this little black flick around the contour of the lid. This is totally up to you, but for some reason I find that this looks just a little bit more graphic, a little bit more current, and it just gives it that cool edge. I'm gonna keep it. Thinking I might also add a little line right here, just for fun, and one right here. Oh yeah. Next I'm gonna add this Huda Beauty highlighter to my brow bone and inner tear duct. Lashes time. I'm just gonna use my waterproof Essence Lash Princess mascara. I'm gonna use these Kiss Lash Drip 3D Drama lashes in the style You Do You. These are unique because they almost look like they have a wet, spiky effect. So I thought these would be perfect for a Halloween costume makeup look. I'm just gonna let the glue get tacky and then add the first lash strip first to the center, then to the inner and to the outer, but lifting the outer slightly just to continue that whole elevated vibe. Sometimes when you lift the outer corner of the lash, it unglues the inner part, so you need to reinforce it a little bit with tweezers and just hold it there so that it actually glues on to your lashes like that. So you can't really see that against the black, but against my hand, you can clearly see how dramatic these lashes are. Now, someone in one of my previous videos actually asked to show on camera how I cut my lashes. So I'm gonna do just that with my second lash. So basically this one is just way too large for my eye. So what I like to do for a Halloween look is just cut off 2 of these little sections. And I call them sections because they're essentially clusters of lashes that are kind of separated into sections. So for a natural eye look, I like to cut off as much as 4 or 5 of those sections. But for Halloween, I'm only going to cut off 2 just to keep it dramatic. So just like that. Apply the glue, allow that to get tacky, and then add it first to the center, then to the inner, and then the outer portion, lifting it a little bit, just slightly, and then also reinforcing that inner corner. Lashes are on. Now for the lips. I'm gonna use this black lip liner from MAC X AALIYAH. If you don't have a black lip liner, you can just use a black eyeliner. It's okay, I won't tell, totally fine. I'm gonna start off by creating this cross-like shape on my Cupid's bow because I really want my Cupid's bow to be pointy and exaggerated. And then of course I'll round it out at the end. But first I want them to be almost straight-like. Also for Halloween, I find that bigger is always better when it comes to features because you really want these features to stand out. So don't be afraid to overline, don't be afraid to really line your eye all the way up to the temples. I'm even sort of outlining my mouth corners, not like in a Joker way or anything, like you have to be careful here, but just in a costumey sort of way. I don't want this to look all the way realistic, you know? Next thing I'm gonna do is add my black liquid lipstick. This one is Fenty. Careful for it not to get on your teeth because it will stain. I'm gonna use my special lip brush to perfect the edges while the lipstick is still wet. Okay, so the lips are now nice and dry and set. So what I'm gonna do now is add a red gloss on top. This one is from House Labs and the shade is Work. So essentially you can add any color, but I wanted to just give it a hint of red because I'm noticing that this look is overall very black with the black eyeshadow, with the black and red contour. So I just wanted to give it a hint of red because I still want it to be on the red side, you know? All right, so we are almost at the end. So what I'm gonna do is whisk off all of this additional contour that I added to my cheek and jawline, to my nose. I have just a couple more things left to do, and that is add my wig, my contacts, and my outfit, and to reveal my sexy she-devil look, just in time for Halloween. Are you ready? Well, hello there, sweetie. How you doing? I am feeling very naughty. I am feeling just a little bit playful, just a little bit devilish. Very excited about this look though. Let's zoom out to show you the full effect, shall we? Here she is in the flesh. Hot, fiery, sexy she-devil. Do you trust me? You should. Alright, so for this very sexy she-devil look, I added some cute little horns with a glitter veil, you know. Also wearing a black wig, obviously. But I actually styled the bangs of this wig to point downwards towards my nose. I felt like it gave it a little retro devilish vibe, and I quite like it. I quite like this look. I feel like it is very sexy, still very much me, not super scary, although the eyes are definitely a pinch on the frightening side. It just feels like I'm ready to party. That's right. Okay, so I took a little break, just had dinner, which is why my lips are so up. Took off the wig because now we're going to transition the sexy look to a scary look. I got some wine, so hold on, cheers. So for this next look, I'm going to be using this Maryam palette. I actually don't quite know the name of it, but of course I'll link it down below as well as all the other products that I'm using. Basically, this is your professional grade stage makeup, Halloween makeup extravaganza. This is what you need to use. It's quite pricey, I will say, but because it is water-based paint, it is very safe to use on the skin. You could use it pretty much everywhere on the skin. You could use it in your pore zones, you could use it on your lids, on your lips. It looks the best up close. It's not streaky, it's not super thick, it's not super fakey looking, it won't crack on you. Basically, to me, this palette is the best costume makeup palette that money can buy. And so because I already have my face base, this is something that can go on top of it, and it can absolutely work with what I'm already wearing on my face without disrupting it. So what you need in order to use these paints is some water. So I have some water right here. You may also want to use an artist palette. This one is from the Cosmo Cube, in case you want to mix colors. And of course, you're going to need some synthetic brushes. It doesn't matter if it's a foundation brush or like concealer brushes like this, something old that you don't care about. But for the sake of timing, I might even go with like a big brush like this. So basically what I'm going to do is dip a brush into some water. Water shouldn't be too cold either. And I'm gonna dip into this red, and I'm gonna just start working that in, creating a nice concoction. And now with this, you don't have to go super opaque. You can start out opaque and then you can sheer it out, or you can start out kind of light and then add more opacity, but that will take more time. So I'm gonna start out opaque, and basically I'm going to start painting this red all over my face for my scary look. Now with this big brush, this is actually going to be rather quick. So let me shut up and get going. I'm actually going over everything, over my entire face, except for the ears. I'm just gonna leave the ears alone because no one's gonna see them anyway. And once I have most of my face covered, I'm gonna take it down to my neck. And with this brush, I'm just using stippling motions. And again, because I already have a face base, this looks pretty good. It doesn't look very streaky at all. In fact, it actually looks pretty even. So now that I'm done with this step, I look like I am crazy sunburned. I'm gonna go back to my detailing brush. I'm gonna sheer out the color just a little bit, and then I'm gonna hit up all those detail areas. Now don't worry if you go over your eyebrows or anything like that. I will take that big brush again and then just continue to stipple that on. Now I'm just gonna add one more layer to the neck and to the jawline, to like any of those sparser areas, just to give my face base a little bit more saturation. And honestly, it is looking really, really good. There's just like a little bit of streakiness here, but not to worry because my wig will be covering the forehead. It is so crazy watching myself talk to you with this red paint on my face. I was about to dip my brush into my wine. Thank God I didn't. Okay, so now I'm just gonna give it a second to set, to dry, because right now it's still just like a little bit damp to the touch. But in order for it to be totally streak free, it has to dry before actually adding the next layer. So while it's drying, I'm gonna sip on some wine. Okay, so in the case of this makeup, you actually don't need to set anything with powder because it is face paint, so essentially it also sets itself. But I am still going to emphasize my features. I'm still going to make them a little bit scarier. So I'm gonna go back and reach for my eyeshadow palettes now. So I'm just gonna dip into a matte black. I'm gonna dip into this black eyeshadow called Little Smoky. And I'm gonna add that on top of the paint very harshly, almost like I am cutting my cheekbone in a cut crease. And then I'm just gonna use whatever is remaining on this brush and kind of drag it down to hollow out this part. You don't want to drag it too harshly though, because then you will remove the red paint. So you just want to make sure that you have enough powder and that the brush is soft enough that it's not ruining any of the red. And if it ruins the red, guess what? You go back with your big brush and you fix it, okay? I'm also going to chisel out my jawline like that, just to make it extra sharp. And now I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. So remember, a gentle touch here is what's best. Kind of like that. It almost looks like I have a bit of a beard, but I'll blend it out. Okay, next, I'm gonna take this slightly lighter shade, Sad Girl, and use that to contour my nose. And then, of course, also blend it out, because this right now is very harsh, but we don't want it to be harsh. We want it to be somewhat subtle. Although this is costume makeup, so don't be afraid if it's not as subtle as you would like. So now I'm just adding contour wherever I think I need it. Underneath my lip, above my lip. Now I'm definitely gonna take that eyebrow contour and I'm going to exaggerate it. I'm going to move that line all the way up and just intensify it. I'm almost creating horns on my eyebrows. And just darkening this triangle and continuing to flick that up. All right, so now that I've mapped that out with the black, I'm gonna go ahead and soften that with some red. So I'm gonna reach for this shade here, which is like a brick red. And I'm gonna go over all of those lines, top and bottom, just to kind of soften them and really make them look more like shadow. For this, I'm actually gonna use a bigger brush. Do you see how suddenly this beard is transforming to a realistic shadow under my jaw? Same thing on the nose, same thing on the chin. Same thing on the forehead. Okay, so now I'm actually gonna take my PIXI powder and I am going to bake and smooth out the area underneath my eyes. And this powder will also help to brighten this area without actually adding white to it, because if you add white paint to it, it will make it look pink. But this will just brighten it, you see, and it'll just help to kind of seal everything together. It'll also help to get rid of any pores or any bumps, because this type of makeup is not very texture friendly, let's just put it that way. It definitely is very enhancing. It covers up any discoloration, that's for sure, but it definitely is not very forgiving when it comes to texture. Okay, so the face is nice and set. Next thing I'm gonna do is detail everything out, because taking the first look to this look is actually much easier because all the glam is essentially already done. All you have to do is just perfect it a little bit and you're good to go. So what I'm gonna do now is take a small detailing brush like this one. This is actually a face painting brush. I'm gonna dip it into my water, mix it in with one of the black paints, and I'm gonna start detailing out the eyebrows, adding hair strokes, and just sharpening and intensifying everything. Also gonna go ahead and lift that arch just a pinch, like that. And do the same thing on this side. Also gonna just connect this line on both sides, just intensify that shadow, intensify that inner corner, and intensify that cheekbone. Also gonna carve out the chin just a little bit. And while it's still wet, just blend it out. And then I'm just using really light strokes just to add stress marks, if you will, or detail marks. I don't really know what to call them. They're almost a little cartoony, but I like them for this look because it really does exaggerate everything. But of course, if you don't like that and if you don't want to do that, you can just lightly blend out the lines with red, like that. I'm just doing a little bit of both. I want it to be sinister and part cartoony, but I also really want it to be exaggerated and over the top and definitely on the scary side. More wine, please. So now I'm gonna take a black eyeshadow. I'm gonna smoke out my lower lash line because I no longer want it to be perfect and precise. Now I want it to be smudgy, crazy, scary, dark, and sickly. So I'm starting to add more black to that lower lash line, blend it down, blend it out, intensify, and darken. And again, if you think you went a little overboard, just go back and erase with red. Okay, so now I'm thinking I need some glitter on my lids. And definitely I need more highlighter. So now I'm gonna go for this Wet n Wild highlighting powder in Bloom Time. This is a peachy highlighter and it's really gorgeous, but I'm just gonna use it to highlight the top of my cheekbones, make them stand out, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of red just to tone that down. I really just wanna emphasize the height of the cheekbone, but without too much glam. So that looks good to me. Do you trust me? I feel like I need a French mustache or something. Next, like I said, I do want to add some glitter to the lids. And for that, I have this, I honestly don't know where it's from. It could potentially be nail glitter, which is not meant for eye usage, but I already know this and I'm doing this to myself, but you should not be doing this. Just get regular glitter that's eye safe. Okay, so to adhere the glitter, I'm gonna use a clear lash adhesive as opposed to a black one. And I'm gonna apply that liberally onto my lid here, but really just to the center. And I'm gonna just spread that with my finger. I'm gonna let that get tacky. So I'm not gonna apply that to the other eye just yet. So the trick with this is to wet your finger, dip it into the glitter, and then add directly to the eye. Okay, now moving on to the other eye. So I put on my little red onesie for the final outfit. The only thing I have left to do are the lips. And for the lips, I'm thinking instead of black, I actually want to go for red. So what I'm gonna do is line my lips lightly with that same lip liner that I used before, the MAC X AALIYAH Nevermore. I'm gonna just slightly contour the lips and darken the corners, but for the actual lip color, I'm gonna go for this Haus Labs gloss. So this was in the shade Work, W-E-R-K. All right, so now I am ready to put on my other set of contacts, back to my wig, back to the horns, and back to the final look. Are you ready? I'm ready.
Ooh. Well, hello there.
I'm feeling hot. So this here is my final makeup look. I'm actually gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna dip my brush, this one from Chantecaille, into a matte blush, perhaps a little bit of this Ever After, maybe this orange shade here too. And I'm just gonna mattify some of my oilier areas, such as my chin and the pore zones. This way, everything looks even more red, even more vibrant, even more devilish. And now that I'm all dressed up and have absolutely nowhere to go because it is not actually now Halloween, nor do I have anywhere to go, I am ready to pose for you guys. All right, so we have zoomed out. Here are the new horns. These are a little bit more deer-like. I don't know. How would you describe these?
Bitchy.
These are a little bit more bitchy than the first ones. Yeah, all of these things you can probably get on Amazon. I got these horns on Amazon. I got this onesie on Amazon. This wig is not from Amazon, but you can definitely get something like this, and I will for sure try to find something similar and look it for you guys. But now let's actually zoom back in so we can appreciate me and not all this clutter. Yeah. This is my sort of take on the devil makeup. First, I wanted to show you guys a very sexy, very approachable she-devil type of costume makeup for Halloween. Something that you can do with just regular makeup, whatever you already own. You don't necessarily need to use anything professional for that first look. And then for the second look, I definitely highly suggest going all out and purchasing something like this. Something that is reliable, something that is skin safe, something that will last you for years. It is definitely an investment, but in my opinion, it is one of the best investments I've made, especially for spooky season. So with that said, you guys, I think I am going to zoom on out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fun, happy, healthy, and safe Halloween season. Mwah!